Kathy. Welcome to the Colorful Homeschooler Podcast, where we parlay on productivity, personality, passions, education, and theory. I'm a lover of Jesus, a wife of 20 years, and a homeschool mama of 4 special needs boys who keep me constantly active. I'm so glad you're here to join me. Pull up a chair, there's space for you at this table. Welcome back, friends and listeners. So happy you're joining me again. If this is your first time listening, welcome. I truly hope you enjoy it and check out some of my other episodes. If you've been a listener since the beginning, thank you so much for continuing to tune in. In episode 9, where I shared my goals with you, I'll link it in the show notes if you haven't heard that one yet, I mentioned how I was seeking to find different methods of self-care, and through that to schedule some consistent self-care time. I knew there had to be more than exercising and reading labeled as self-care. Options, since not all things work in all seasons. Options, since not all things work for me. Options, because mama needs choices. Today, I will share some of these options that I uncovered, and hopefully, together, we can find a few that work for each of us. Put them on a revolving schedule. Plan time to give to yourself. A fulfilled and centered mama gives herself more wholeheartedly, more successfully to her children and husband. Show up for you so you can show up for them. There are 5 basic categories of self-care that I uncovered while researching. They are physical, psychological, emotional, social, spiritual, and professional. Let's dig into each of them one at a time. I'll explain the category and then go over some questions that I want you to ask yourself to kind of see where you're at in each of these categories. I'll then tell you how I did in it, and hopefully together we can get a little bit better in 1 or 2 of them. I'll try to give some practical options at the end to maybe suggest something new to cover this category and get yourself a little healthier with it. So physical self-care was the one I was most familiar with. It showed when I took a physical self-care assessment. I scored pretty high on this one. Basically, this one boils down to health and your body. So get out your pencil and your therapeutic notebook that we talked about in the last episode, and how about you answer some of these questions? Do you eat healthy foods? Do you consistently give in to your cravings, or do you have pretty good discipline? Do you eat regularly, not skipping meals? Do you have a good personal hygiene routine? Do you wear clothing that makes you feel good about yourself? Do you participate in fun activities, such as dancing or walking in nature on a regular basis? Do you get enough sleep and rest when you aren't sick? And how about when you're feeling 100% or not feeling 100%? Do you exercise and go to preventative medical appointments? The only one that I thought I could do better on under this category is making sure to participate in more fun activities. For me, that could even mean just taking a dance break midday. I used to do that, but it's been a long time since I have. I do eat healthy foods, and I try to stay disciplined with my sweets, caffeine, and alcohol consumption. I exercise regularly, and I have a pretty solid sleep routine. I am currently watching my protein intake due to an uptick in my time at the gym, and I'm definitely not skipping any meals. I love fashion, and wearing clothing that I enjoy and makes me feel good is almost a creed for me. So I did pretty well in physical, but to add in a little more of those fun activities on a daily basis, even if they're just for a few minutes all. Like I said, a dance break in the middle of the day, a quick walk outside. Under the personal hygiene routine, do you want to try a new skincare system or maybe some skin cycling? How about preventative medical appointments? Eek! Is it good for you to just make those appointments all in 1 month? And then every year you just have 1 month that's chock full of them and you don't have to think about it for the rest of the year? Clothing that makes you feel good about yourself. I bet many of you are doing that already, but for those that aren't, what about just stocking a core wardrobe that you can filter in and out through the year? You can get this from a thrift store, you can get it from your favorite place to shop, but just some elegant, excellent, the right cut for your body clothing that then you can put on a revolving schedule so you have pretty consistent clothing that makes you feel lovely. How about psychological and emotional self-care? So this includes learning, thinking, and growing activities, positively attending to your mental health and emotional life, and processing through your feelings. So this can seem like a broad definition, so let me hone in on the questions to make it earthy for you. We'll bring it down to earth. Do you take time off from work, school, or other obligations and leave yourself room for time when nothing is expected of you? Do you get away from distractions, such as the phone and email? Do you participate in hobbies that make you feel successful? Do you purposefully learn new things, not for work or school, but for personal development? Do you express your feelings in healthy ways? Do you know your own best coping strategies? Do you have someone with whom you can talk about your problems openly without fear of judgment or unwanted commentary? Do you truly see your own strengths and achievements, and do you celebrate them? Do you find reasons to laugh and enjoy life? Do you purposefully choose comforting things, such as rewatching a favorite movie or taking a long bath? I personally came up mid on this one. I'm definitely attentive to my feelings, and I work hard on not suppressing them. I enjoy learning, but I did have to lower my score at this point in my life because most of my extraneous learning is for this podcast right now. So I don't really feel free to learn anything that I would like. For example, I've had a book called The Secret History of Home Economics, and I really want to read it. It's about how home economics was the only way that women could get into university for a while, a couple decades, because they weren't allowed in universities. So having a home economics major was the only way that they could get in. And they used it to study all different things like medicine and botany. So it was almost a shell corporation, the home economics major. And that is fascinating to me. But it is sitting in my to-be-read list, in my to-be-read pile without getting the attention it deserves because I keep learning different things for you, ladies and gentlemen, and for this podcast. Here's that pesky taking time off to have no obligations. Yikes. I always have obligations, so I'm not scoring myself that high on this one. I do know some of my coping strategies, and I'm constantly reading Psychology Today articles and listening to podcasts to try and gain more in my arsenal. I do have a therapist whom I go to in order to work through some difficulties without judgment. I've been getting better at just sitting to work on my podcast or sitting to paint. I still judge myself based on my lack of usefulness at that moment, but I try actively to silence that voice. I'm getting a little better at that. I don't always see my own achievements, and I often don't celebrate them when I do. Eek, that's not good. So I do, however, try to consistently stay positive-ish. I try to laugh. I try to see the way forward. I try not to stay stuck. I don't always do a great job of planning comforting things, but sometimes I prioritize it. If I could get more consistent, I would have given myself a better score on that particular question. So I think some of the things we can all do to add in a little more psychological and emotional self-care, I love that bit about planning comforting things for yourself. Now, this can tie in with physical self-care and planning a massage or a facial, maybe with a friend, and we'll tie in a little social self-care, which is our next category. But there's also rewatching that favorite movie, right? I know I have some that really make me just comfortable, and maybe they're brain cell killing and not intelligent films at all, but who cares? If they make you happy, give yourself those times to sit and watch. I recently just finished a show that I know is brain cell killing. I know it is just foolish nonsense, but I love it. Every time it comes out, I'm not even telling you what it is, but it is comforting to me and I do enjoy it and it does refresh me. So I left my Mondays open, my Monday evenings, and I wouldn't write, I wouldn't record, I wouldn't edit, I wouldn't research. I decided that for 2 hours, I am just watching the show during the week. Give yourself that kind of time. The third category is social self-care. This refers to the activities and relationships we have with others that promote our well-being. So I've dropped a few podcasts on this topic lately. Episode 13 is Who's Your Squad? Connection for Parents in an Age of Isolation. And episode 12 was The Comparison Trap. Stop comparing with others and judging yourself. Some questions to help you hone in on this one. Do you actively seek out ways to spend time with people you like? Do you call or write to friends and family who are far away? Do you deliberately meet new people and have stimulating conversations with them or those you already associate with? Do you spend time alone on dates and in intimacy with your spouse? Do you ask others for help when you need it? Do you offer help to others and mean it? Do you do enjoyable activities with others, seeking shared joy and shared laughter? I do actively seek out time to enjoy with others that I care about. I set up several get-togethers each year, including my Oscar party, Black Tie, which is coming up March 2nd. So excited. I love this party. My one friend says it's like my second birthday. But besides that, I do find time to have people over, get larger groups together, set up theme parties, and meet friends for coffee. I send out texts to friend groups when I sign up for craft or painting classes through my town to see who wants to sign up with me. I stay in touch with my grandparents and parents regularly and text a close aunt and cousin. I speak with my brother and sister regularly as well. And we choose shared things to talk about. My brother and I are extremely into films. We enjoy the Oscars. We read a lot and talk about what we're reading, and then just chat about life. My sister and I talk about exercising and about different things that we're doing with friends, as well as our favorite old movies like Labyrinth and The Goonies. So picking a topic and trying to chat about it consistently with these people who are special to you is important. I'm not great at asking for help, but I know that I need to get better at this. I also don't find myself in a position right now to meet new people. I kind of have my same friend groups and I revolve through them, but new people are so essential to a constantly expanding conversational repository. So those would be my two biggest needs for growth in this category. How about you? The fourth category is spiritual self-care. This one is so important to me. I must admit that I didn't see it as self-care until I started doing this research, but of course it is. My spiritual life is a huge source of soothing to me, as well as a category that keeps me growing and learning. This would include your faith, our mindfulness and presence practices, gratitude principles, and our attention to nature. Well, right off the bat from that description, how do you think you're doing? Now, some questions to dig deeper. Do you recognize the things that give meaning to your life? Do you have a deep faith, and do you express that in time spent in learning, worship, and prayer? Do you learn more about your faith on a regular basis? Do you choose several times a week to read scripture and pray? Do you meditate or practice mindfulness in different ways? Do you spend time in nature? Check out podcast 10 for some winter nature study ideas. Do you set aside time for thought and reflection? This one is a crossover with the psychological and emotional self-care category. I did a journaling reflection on my past year, including some prompts and opportunities to dig into in episode 8. Do you act in accordance with your morals and values, participating in causes that are important to you, and living in an honorable way? Do you appreciate art that is impactful to you? And this doesn't just include visual art like paintings. We're also talking about beautiful music and concerts, or watching a film, or something that arises hope in you. This is essential. Our brain has been shown to react strongly to sensory experiences revolving around the arts. I'm actually researching for an upcoming podcast on the saliency of artistic experiences on generalizing skills, both for us as adults and for our children. So in this category, I am strong in regular faith expression. About 4 to 5 times a week of quiet time where I pray and read scriptures. We attend a local church every week and participate in ministry there. I do attempt to live according to my values on a regular basis, and I interact with art purposefully. I spend time in nature several times a week, although that may just look like an early morning run outside. But when I miss those due to injury or schedule, I feel it. I hate indoor cardio for any extended period of time. I don't have much time, though, for thought or reflection. I'm pretty constantly on the go until night, when I sometimes collapse into that brainless media hole that I talked about earlier. I definitely see the need for this downtime, and it's something I've been consciously working on. I do recognize the things that give meaning to my life, but I don't always feel that I've adequately taken hold of them, so there's room for improvement there as well. Our final category is professional or occupational self-care. This type of self-care would be using habits, processes, systems, and communities to make your work life sustainable. This one may seem like the least glamorous, but what we do every day obviously has a huge pull on our life. Everyone easily admits this, but what are we doing to make this more enjoyable, maintainable, and engaging? Are you improving your professional skills and learning new things related to your profession or daily engagement through reading, taking a class, a webinar, a TED Talk? Do you say no to excessive responsibilities? Now, sometimes a season comes along where we can't really do this. That may be a busy season. As I say on particularly difficult runs, you can do anything for a mile. But it's the long term that we're looking at. Do you consistently pile it on without a break? Okay, moving on to the next question. Do you take on projects that are interesting or rewarding? Do you make time to talk and build relationships with colleagues or those in the same stage of life as you? Now, as a homeschool mom or virtual worker, this would include joining professional organizations, getting together at conferences or on virtual calls, and seeking out purposeful ways to get together with those in the same field, to learn from one another and push each other to grow. Do you take breaks during work at appropriate times? Do you maintain a work-life balance and keep a comfortable workspace? Do you advocate for fair pay and other needs that you have? As a homeschool mama, thinking of homeschooling as my occupation, I did all right in this section. I do read homeschooling books, I do go to conferences, and listen to podcasts and virtual teachings to keep myself fresh in this long haul. I don't say no to excessive responsibilities, though, but again, it may just be a season. That's been going on for several years, but who's counting? I keep my home relatively clean and our classroom free-ish from clutter. I have my breaks now, but I am trying to get a walk outside in the middle of the day. That's been difficult because that's also when I correct the morning schoolwork. So I'm trying to figure out how and if that's a good move for me because work-life balance is important, but getting that work corrected is important too. So just trying to figure out where do I stand with all of that. I do take on projects that are rewarding, like this podcast, and I try to base my commitment on a definable length of time. That way, if it is too much for a little while, I know that, okay, I'm doing it until November 2025, and then I'm reassessing. I've tried to keep open times open and not fill them with unnecessary subjects or writing my script at times other than the ones I've designated to do that. So, as I said, I did okay as a homeschool mom on the occupational or professional self-care section. So, how'd you do on this self-care assessment? It's not easy, right? I shared a few things that I will be trying to add in consistently to up my scores in some of these domains. I think all of us can likely do better in at least one, if not several of these categories. And I think, as I said at the top, the more we are attentive to ourselves, the more we as parents will be able to be present for our children. I encourage you to add in some new ideas for self-care to your own schedule. Post to Instagram if there are some that truly resonated with you or some ideas that you have yourself. Let's encourage one another so we can be accountable. Don't forget about those massages or those facials or those manicures and pedicures. Those are really fun to do. But remember the simpler things. Like I just said, the walk outside during lunch, reading something that enhances your professional viewpoint or makes you feel more successful, going to therapy, talking about your emotions openly and learning coping strategies, reading an article and then sharing something intelligent with a friend, wearing something new that makes you feel great. We can all add in a few things. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please tell a friend. And please leave me a 5-star review wherever you're listening to it. If you could take the extra few minutes, it makes a huge difference if you leave a written review. I drop new episodes every Tuesday, and we have some interesting topics coming out in the next few weeks. Thank you so much for listening and for coming back every week. Remember all, I believe.